All right. We're live. Welcome to Table Talk, where we talk all things table talk. It's me, your boy, the Bella Gamer, and Alex. What's up?
Hello. Your camera's different and changed, and the position is different.
It is. Is that distracting for you?
No, I just saw it, and it was like different thing, new thing, change. Change is scary.
Yeah. Change can be scary. That's for sure. I'm trying to use my phone. I used my phone as my camera last week.
Yeah, but it was a similar enough angle.
Was it really?
Yeah, this one's like, one, it's slight Dutch angle, and then this is more curtain than usual. I don't know, I just notice. Well, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. Camera's a camera.
Yeah. We got what we got.
Yeah.
Drop frames. Why are we dropping frames? Pick them up.
Pick 'em up, Cam. Damn it. Come on. I feel like you should feel just as bad about that one. Like, what the fuck?
It's better now. It's better for me now because I beat you to it.
Damn it.
My sin is forgiven. I just headed it off and killed the snake at its head.
I'm certain I'll make a dumb joke later. I'll pick up pieces, much like the frames.
But yeah, and is that music too loud? Problem with using my phone, I can't now check Twitch subtly on my phone. Tell me at the...
It's like a little. Like, turning it down like a little bit would be a good idea.
Okay. It's so hard to know. Okay. But yeah, we're live. It's been a week. Holy crap. Since the last time we were here, right? That was before the Game Awards, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, we were like watching the Game Awards while doing this shit.
Oh yeah, it was during the Game Awards that we were here.
Yeah.
And gosh, it was a good one. I'm so hyped for Armored Core.
Yeah, like what a just good show. Like that was
It was good. Yeah.
That was nuts. I'm very happy that they actually like took a lot of the critiques into account because there were some problems with the other Game Awards, like for sure. And then this one was just an all-around good event. And then like recently, the event I was watching live the entire time, the fucking chess boxing tournament.
Yes.
That was so good. It was such a fun. I'm a chess boxing fan, 100%. I've never found like boxing that interesting. I've never found chess like super interesting. Them together, way cooler.
It was definitely interesting, yeah, for sure. It was a big event, and I think it was just something weird. It was just something weird, and I think it was the right kind of content for how this year's been going.
The thing I was the most surprised to hear is that apparently chess boxing's been a thing for a while.
Yeah, like, that's also strange. I just thought it was like something Ludwig had come up with.
No, him, and like same with the current world champ of chess boxing. They just saw a YouTube video of chess boxing. We're like, that's really cool, and they just did it.
Right.
And it's a fucking great sport. Like some of those, like I've never been hyped, like actually hyped up, like out of my mind for chess. And then the one like YouTube sketch comedian Sherdley's the whole time doing bits while they're playing chess. Absolutely, like he just has. Both of them have like no clue how to play chess, so it's just him like picking up a piece, turning to the crowd, like, "Is this the right one?" Like pointing at spaces as they cheer. It was like so fun. Also, it was a good example of, I think, the important aspect of events that a lot of people need to keep into account. That the event, the entertainment value of the event comes first. Because I noticed that with the Churdleys and like myth fight, because there's a part where like they were about to run out of time without going like in chess without going to another round of boxing, and like the boxing they did was so hype, so they like subtly added more time to Churdley's like chess clock so they could have another round of boxing.
Right.
And it's like that's the shit you kind of got to do as a TO if you want to just run a fun thing. Rules be damned, make a cool thing. Other than that, though, it was very well ran.
It was
impressive.
And the last slap fight with Connor or C-Dog, that was so clutch at the very end. Both of them pushing the time limit. It was great.
The really fun thing too was I was hanging out with my girlfriend at the time that was happening, and they're a big C-Dog fan.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a big Ludwig fan, so we're both like, come on, for like our guy.
Mm-hmm.
I was like,
that's very fun.
0.5 second Ludwig, just play faster chess. He was right there.
They were duking it out right there in the middle of the board. It was great.
Oh, and then like it is peak Ludwig to like go easy on the first and then like get slapped for reals. Like, oh, I see how it is.
Mm-hmm. Well, and C-Dog has played a lot of actual chess too. He used to do like online chess stuff.
Yeah, and then Ludwig did a bunch of like chess tournament stuff. That was like a year or two ago though. Back during the chess meta of Twitch.
Yeah, goodness. Twitch and metas. It's really so strange. Speaking of as well, we just shared recently. We were top 1% in the tabletop RPG section on Twitch.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. It's not that impressive, actually.
I mean, we can still pretend it is.
Hey, you know what? It's something to celebrate with the community. It's something to be like, hey guys, look at what we did. That's kind of cool. And I saw other people on Twitter who were just like, oh yeah, I'm so freaking top 2% or whatever. And I was just like,
It's like when you have a game release or a film and then some random guy says a random like quote about your movie, so you take it out of context, put it on the cover, like it's a serious review. And it's like, that's just some guy off Twitter that you just ripped that quote from. Also, it is at least Ludwig's actually very good at chess, I'll say. He did very well, and he's won like a tournament or two, like from like chess.com stuff. The only problem is the man gets in his own head so much he blunders like every other move.
Yeah. Which
would be me in chess, other than the fact that I can't see a move ahead of me. I can't like think through moves. I've tried where it's like I can only think one move ahead, and then I can't think any more than that. I'm too impulsive when it comes to things like that. Because I'm the full one that's like, all right, and send it, and I put my queen across the board, and then I get checkmate.
I'm such an aggressive chess player. My modus operandi is to swap as many like high pieces as I can, and then just try to see who can duke it out better with what remains.
Hell yeah. I feel like I'd play very aggressively too, and like it's part of it with all this. I'm like, it could be really interesting to like sit down and actually try to learn chess, learn openings, like go through all this. I don't think I have the attention span for it and the patience. That's my problem.
It's a very different game. Once you start learning like the ins and outs of chess, it turns into a game that like you feel it's just kind of like a battle of the pieces, and it turns into utilizing strategies that kind of always work in the same, like when you know actual chess strategies, it's just, okay, I know that if I do it this way and they respond in this fashion, that eventually we're gonna kind of get into this rhythm of the game is gonna play itself a little bit, because they have to play in a certain way to kind of counter what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
And then it just varies by experience and like prediction.
I feel like if I had the chance to play chess, I would prefer the chess boxing variant, because watching boxing was like fun. Boxing was actually entertaining to watch, because the only other boxing fight I've seen is the Conor McGregor versus Mayweather fight, which was one of the lamest things I've ever seen.
Yeah, that was a very sad fight.
It was just kind of
that's boring. Not a fight you should ever like mention as being like, oh yeah, I've seen an actual boxing fight before.
Yeah. It was really lame. But like it's made me think like, man, if I was like told like right now, Alex will pay for a bunch of like equipment and like training, you get to pick one like sport or athletic thing of your choice, I think I'd go into boxing.
Oh goodness,
I feel like
I get so bloodthirsty. I haven't fought in anything in years. Last thing I fought in was a foam weapon tournament at a convention like, I don't know, a decade ago or something like that.
Yeah.
And I love fighting so much. It's just one of the things that like really I get really, really into. I won that tournament too. I have the weapon. I have the trophy weapon in the room.
Yeah. As well. I was talking to my trainer about it. Like, we're just talking about boxing after the event, like in one of our workouts, and I was mentioning like boxing seems fun. I was like, I feel like I want to have the strategy of if I was in chess boxing, I would 100% focus on the boxing, and I'll just punch you down to my level. And I was saying like how fun it would be. Like I feel like my go-to strat would be learn how to tank punches because I actually have a very good pain tolerance. I'm very fine with just being hurt. It doesn't really take anything out of me. Granted, I've never been punched in the face, so I'd train to get good at that, and then I just make it so I am like an absolute powerhouse in the boxing. And apparently, there's a guy who's currently like 40 something to 1 with doing that because like every punch he throws when he gets the opportunity is a knockout punch.
Mm-hmm.
Every fight except for one isn't like Deontay Wilder. And I've seen them fight, and I was like, this guy's amazing. Like, I would train to get to that level. Just have, like, I can take a punch, and I can throw one mean, like, right or left hook that'll just floor you. That also seems like it fits at least my body type, and just my general strategy and stuff like that. I don't care for all this, like, technique. I'm just gonna punch you very hard one time. While you're expending all your energy going jab, 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 just one wham. It's like, all right, now play chess.
Yeah, I mean, I was on to Suzanne, I was like, oh yeah, I would love to do something like that. Even though everyone keeps talking about like how dangerous boxing is and everything,
oh, yeah,
I would be there in a heartbeat. I also got super hyped during the Crater Clash.
Yeah, I've heard it was a great event. I didn't watch it just because it was like, because again, I saw the McGregor and Mayweather fight, and I was like, if I've seen boxing, if that's its height, I don't want to see anymore.
It's just like I take so it back. Entertaining watching people you watch on YouTube, like Aaron Hansen.
Oh yeah, he was
box. Yeah, he got creamed, but that was because he was playing a guy who was like a whole foot taller than him. So, it was a very rough fight.
They mentioned in the chess boxing commentary, like, the only boxing that's fun to watch is amateur boxing and pro boxing, the peak pro boxing. Because amateur boxers will just, like, go wild, go swinging out the gate, just trying to floor somebody. And they are vicious. And that was, and even the tournament all started off too with melee boxing, where they played melee and then box. It was so fucking cool because melee's a hype game. I love melee, and then it's just like, just two guys fucking like Fox Falco like wave dashing, jumping out of shine as they're heaving from like 2 rounds of boxing is so funny.
Yeah, honestly, that's the biggest thing about boxing, especially in a setting like this, is it's not about whether or not you can actually like do well in boxing. It's how tired do you get while boxing.
Oh yeah, boxing is cardio. That's a cardio
sport. It's super cardio. So it's one of those things where it's fascinating for sure, but I just like after the chess boxing, like I was just getting so like bloodthirsty. I miss fighting. I used to do a lot of LARP stuff, and
this is the only time I've been like, I'd fight somebody. I'm normally a very like, violence ain't my deal. Now it's like, yo, I'd box somebody.
Yeah.
If for some reason there was a Warhammer or a tabletop like boxing event and someone was like, "Hey, Blue Boy, you want in?" I'd be like, "Yes, holy shit, I'll do it.
Mm-hmm.
I'll train my ass off." Nothing's motivating to like really improve your health than hey, you're gonna be live stream in front of like thousands of people to beat the shit out of another man.
Yeah, it's true. It's definitely it would definitely be an experience. I don't know. Something we gotta work on uh here at the channel. Oh, I saw that frame skip.
To get to the point where we can box people.
Yeah. Well, and just get popular enough where we get invited to that kind of stuff.
That'd be hype. I was also sad that my boy Stans, one night Stans, got his shoulder dislocated during the fight when he was doing so well.
Yeah.
That's my boy. That's my streamer, and he got out. His shoulder was bad. That's the third time it dislocated doing boxing stuff. His doctors did yell at him quite a bit.
But yeah, so it's been a real nutty week, pretty much since the last time we were here, and it's been an interesting time, and in even our own space because I've been working on some videos as well. I'm a little sad the video I posted today has done terribly.
Aw.
It is what it is. It's a mix of, it's off-brand, kind of. And the thumbnail is kind of, like, basic. But I just copied Fadi Vidia's thumbnail.
Oh, yeah, I remember you telling me you're doing that.
Yeah. So I might change the thumbnail up, maybe to make it a little bit more interesting after this. We'll have to see.
Yeah,
but...
Little post thumbnail change never hurts anything.
Oh, tons of channels do it all the time.
Oh, yeah.
Swap their thumbnails around. So, I've also been working on the Twitter side of thing, posting stuff and communicating with people. So, I've been really busy, but it's definitely been. We also like started this week. We started our Lancer campaign, like actually. So, that's pretty cool. And it's just like a lot of things, and there's some other stuff as well that I won't mention here, but we got some stuff in the works at the moment that'll be really cool for the channel. So, I don't want to spoil anything just in case it doesn't happen or whatever, but we got some outside interest in the channel, so hopefully something comes of that in the near future.
I'm really excited for the possibility.
But yeah, and then like I said, we got the top 1% in the tabletop RPGs category, and even though like it's not super hard, honestly, but as people say all the time, if you get like more than 9 viewers at a time, you jump up to like the top 6% on all of Twitch. And we've had a few of our streams go like to above 20 before. So it's definitely something that we've done some really good work in the space, and it shows. And I mean, it's a percentage thing, right? It's not like oh, a bunch of people got 1%. No, of all the channels that have done it, you're in the top 1% as far as like, I don't even know what it's based on, to be fair. It's probably like viewer count or something.
Probably.
Because that's like what everyone markets as like the number one thing. We also stream a lot, to be fair, and we stream exclusively in the tabletop RPG category.
That just means we're the best.
Hey, we're the top 1%, like I said.
Yeah.
So, it's not only that, but I do legitimately think that the direction we take in the channel, where we're pushing for some outside of Pathfinder stuff, but still keeping, like, tomorrow will be another archetype video, actually. We got the next archetype coming up.
Yo.
So we're getting back on that track as well. And some of the ideas, I actually do genuinely like my Armored Core 6 video that I made. I took some clips from like some Armored Core play and showed some images from Lancer, and it's shocking how close the two like IPs are, honestly, and how they're played. So
I would not be shocked if one of the Lancer devs mentioned, oh yeah, I like Armored Core.
I would not be either. So like, and like I said, it could be a variety of things. It's not Pathfinder, so people who are Pathfinder exclusive probably aren't looking for it, and who knows, you know, it's hard to say exactly. I mean, my stuff that's not Pathfinder related or like D&D related never do super well.
Mm-hmm.
Even my like final thoughts on like some of the stuff we've done for games barely ever make it above 100 views.
Yeah, the sad truth of things.
That's the battleground that we have to fight on, though, you know, because the thing is, and I was going over this with my roommate, but like Nonets has been struggling on his increase ever since, you know, he kind of like peaked in a sense for Pathfinder content. He still is one of the best solo Pathfinder, or mostly exclusive Pathfinder content creators. But if you check him out on like Social Blade and you see his growth, it's been slowly going down for the last few months. And to be fair, he's also not been posting as much as he used to, which I'm sure is affecting some of the numbers to a point. Especially because some of his recent content did actually pretty well. But it's just the Pathfinder community is just not that big. In fact, unless you're in D&D, all the communities suffer really. And that's just kind of why I feel like if we can successfully make variety tabletop the thing, the move, get people really interested in the idea of variety tabletop and make it interesting, I think we're sitting on a literal gold mine of content.
Hell yeah. I also like the idea that it can set a way to help dissuade the sad truth of creators, where it's a thing I see often, and I've seen it a few times, and I know we've touched on it, the whole thing of like creators just being unable to like do anything else, like because it's just a bad bet. Like I watched I saw a few like replies, people saying like, yeah, I wish such and such would make these videos, but too much of a sellout to make them. It's like, that's not the reason.
That's not it at all.
That's not the reason. It's because like you make a bad video that hurts you in the algorithm, that if you're making like money and like you're living off of YouTube, like stepping away from that is a possible like loss of income.
Yeah,
I don't want to take that gamble. Like that's an unsafe bet. And I if we can at least help the tabletop space by like helping assuage that fear of creating an audience that actually wants to like watch other things, and so other creators can be more free with what they're creatively doing, that is a great thing to do.
Yeah, I agree. And it's kind of like indie gaming, you know, like indie gaming wasn't really even much of a big thing even in early YouTube, when indie games were a lot of what people were watching because it was horror. But when it wasn't a horror indie game, it wasn't, people only watched the YouTubers that they knew that they had been following for a while, like Markiplier, PewDiePie, Jacksepticeye, you know. And even Jacksepticeye too, to such a lesser degree, because he ended up making a lot of content on very big titles early on. And there are indie channels. There are indie channels I've watched and I personally follow that I've seen whom did not do, they, for 5, 6, 7 years even, they were trucking very slowly on a very slow incline while all the like niche channels were blowing past them all the time.
Yeah.
Like the Minecraft sweep, during that age, where people would start a Minecraft channel and then in like no time at all they would get to like 100k or 200k, while the poor indie, variety indie YouTubers were still kind of trekking. And it wasn't until like the mid 2010s, somewhere in that range, where indie gaming really started popping off, especially with all the discontent of AAA industry, and people were just looking for other stuff. And then their stuff, like a lot of them now, are like 500k plus, pushing higher and higher. And it's very interesting. Another really, really popular one is Tag Black TV.
I have not heard of that.
Sorry, Tag Back TV. Another guy, he's absolutely wonderful. He got, I think, really big during the Animal Crossing era. But most of what he does is he streams on YouTube, and then he'll make videos occasionally. And he is gotten over 100 or over 1 mil at this point.
Damn.
And a lot of his content is indie. I mean, he does super bank on the games that do well. Like Stardew Valley has been huge for him. Animal Crossing, which isn't indie, he did very well at. He did some Elden Ring stuff that did pretty well as well. But he also just streams constantly other content and has done really, really well. So it's the thing of, it can work, but whoever's working on it is going to suffer in the meantime.
Yeah.
Their growth is gonna be less. They're gonna make less money, have less opportunities from sponsors, and that's hard, especially when you're trying to make this your job. It's hard to say, hey, I'm gonna hard cap my growth for the sake of making a more diverse platform to go off of. And actually, since it's kind of around time now, why a lot of tabletop RPGs are pretty mediocre, which is both a true and false fact. There are a lot of tabletop RPGs that are kind of mid, honestly. There are I have one like right now. Here, let me go grab it real quick.
I wonder if it's the same one I might be thinking of. There's one like tabletop game we picked up when I think you went to Comic-Con that I remember being like, it's fine.
Oh, not that one.
Oh, not
that one's also a little mid, but this one, Black Void, it looks really interesting. This is a thick book. This is a really deep, big book.
That's fucking dense. Holy shit.
And I would love to say that the game was really at all interesting, but it's not. And it's a very, like I said, it's a very interesting. Actually, one second here. I'm gonna pull up my thingy. I can. Like, I love that. Like, I got it. Don't judge a book by its cover. Well, I buy books by their cover all the time.
What was up with it?
So it's a big book. The thing is, it's kind of an interesting genre of it's kind of like this one is a very like medieval trans-dimensional setting in a sense, as strange as that is. Like, it's about a bunch of cultures. It has a lot of like Silk Road kind of feeling to it, you know, a lot of Greek influence, a lot of Arabian influence, some Chinese influence, all that kind of stuff. And it's trans-dimensional, and you're these people who are using like medieval armors and weapons and such, going against supernatural creatures. It's kind of like Nightingale, right? That game that's currently in the works.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Only
survival game we're looking at.
Medieval Silk Road kind of stuff. And the book uses a lot of its art repetitively.
Oh.
And I sat and read this book a lot. I read this book on my way home from Norway, which was a super long trip. I don't remember how the dice system works. It's that forgettable.
Damn.
It's just not that interesting. And that's the problem with a lot of tabletop, actually, is tabletop in general has a lot of games that are not super good or interesting, because a lot of them were trying to reinvent the wheel, which is work with the D20 system or dice systems to try to like make it give their own twist on it. Or they're like, it's a really cool universe idea, but the book itself or the game itself doesn't add anything to it. Like, it doesn't make it an interesting game, for instance. Can be a lot of TTRPGs problems.
Yeah,
where
there's like a character designer or a world designer goes really hard, and then like the actual game design is kind of like the second thought.
Yeah. And that's just not how tabletop can be, because like, and that's the thing, right? And this thought occurred to me when I was thinking about today's videos, everything. D&D, 5e, and Pathfinder are divided on the difference between a very strong core gaming concepts and the history of D&D. That's the market division, because no one can look at D&D 5th edition and tell me it's better designed than Pathfinder in literally any way, other than maybe like accessibility. But even then, I disagree with that, because the game gets easier the more you just like, once you get past the initial hurdles, the game's real easy, because it's just simple math. It's just, oh, you get a +2 circumstance on this situation. That's it.
Yeah, it's a typical accessibility by sheer volume of rules, where it's the sliding scale of Pathfinder gets easier the more you play, 5e gets harder the more you play.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the opposite scale of the effect. Less rules means that like, oh, this is so easy, I only have to remember this. And then once you actually get expertise, it's, I can exploit this, or there's not enough here. Yeah. What else can I do? Nothing.
Yeah. And that's where D&D falls a lot, is,
exactly,
oh, look at this super exploitable thing, or, oh, look at this hole in the system that I have to now patch. Yeah. So, but that's, the difference is how it's marketed and the history of D&D and everything. You got Wizards of the Coast, you got a lot of big names, big people in the industry who are playing these things, celebrities, yada yada. And they're playing it or are fascinated by it purely because D&D is D&D, and it's the old hat of tabletop. And now that tabletop's cool, everyone wants to do the thing that, you know, the Satanic Panic was about all back in the day. Like, it's a very storied in Titanic game. It's not a game, it's a service. I mean, it has game elements. People can enjoy D&D 5e, and I have enjoyed D&D 5e before. But that's the thing, like, it's a game, but it's kind of mid as far as, like, its design principles.
That might also be referencing the recent D&D executives.
The marketing, yeah.
Talking about how it's not monetized enough.
Yeah, it's under monetized, and that's such a... Well, one, it does address one of the main issues with tabletop in general, which is it's not an industry that inherently makes a lot of money. And
once you sell a book, what the fuck do you do?
Right. And so the guy was talking and making a lot of sense. It just rubs the community the wrong way because it kind of invalidates the community to say, hey, you guys aren't spending enough money on our hobby.
Also, the sentence of such and such isn't well monetized makes everyone immediately think of like EA and Ubisoft shit.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and to be fair, it is.
Yeah, it's like it's true. It's under monetized, and also if I have to get fucking microtransactions for my D&D, Jesus Christ.
Right. And see, and that's the thing, and that's why there are so many mediocre tabletops out there, because they have even less to work with. And whatever they do produce is not even going to be close to the worst sold D&D books.
Yeah.
Like, not even remarkably. And that's because the industry needs to evolve into an age that's much more connected, a lot more online, accessibility, and also it needs to kind of have more of a presence in things that make the game more interesting and enhanced. If companies were constantly pumping out like digital character creators that were kind of like Hero Forge in a way, I think people would spend money on that kind of stuff, making their characters, their ideal characters, in some kind of character creator. And the thing with tabletop and variety tabletop in general is we just don't have the culture built. We don't have the culture built for things like I said, it's like $60 for a core book sometimes for tabletop games, but that's the same as buying a video game.
Mm-hmm.
And if you play tabletop for like between 10 and 20 sessions, depending on how long you play each time, you'll get about as much time as you do in any AAA game title, and sometimes potentially way more. I've definitely got way more hours in Pathfinder for sure. And and that's the thing. And the thing that tabletop can do to kind of alleviate this is, if more people get interested in the hobby and if more people get like into variety of tabletop, there can be more cheap core books on PDFs and stuff like that. And then they can sell the material books as the post-sale sales. Because I'll tell you, Pathfinder has all of its rules online for free, and they still do relatively well as a company. Because despite having all the rules free online, they know that's not actually how you make money in the industry. You make money in Pathfinder by making a really good game that gets a very hardcore audience who will then go and buy all your books.
Get that dedicated fan base that'll be like, I'm going to buy all your books. And luckily, Pathfinder does release a lot of books.
They do.
Oh my god, Pathfinder 1E, especially. Ooh,
and a lot of them are really good quality as well. And the thing that we're doing here is trying to establish that community of variety tabletop. That's why I really want to make very fun, entertaining tabletop videos. I want to make it look fun, look cool, create MV content based on tabletop. Because that's, I think, if we're the ones to successfully do that, we'll be at the top. Easy. Everyone will come to us for everything. And the best part is, even if we are, if other people follow, people can watch them as well, because we don't produce, any more than like an hour and a half of content a week sometimes. Or if you're including our live plays, 5.5 hours, It's not a lot. People watch YouTube way more than that. So, our success is not going to be at anyone's detriment, and if anything, it will be only at everyone's benefit. But we need to change this culture and the style of people who are representing the hobby to be something that's a little bit more accessible for a majority of people online.
The thing we always talk about, making Pathfinder more of a gaming thing rather than a tabletop gaming thing.
Exactly. And as well, and actually this is the initial concept for today was talking about the perfect tabletop, which I've slightly tweaked, but that is something that I am curious about for my co-host as well as everyone in the audience as well. Like, for you guys, what would be your ideal tabletop? What's something that tabletop doesn't do that you absolutely wish it did, or had more variety in, or whatever?
I think my perfect tabletop is something we've actually touched on as like a fun little event to do. I would absolutely love it if there was a tabletop game that could do stuff like Galactic Conquest from the original Battlefront 2, where the idea of not exactly one-to-one that, but I'm thinking of like a tabletop game where you play you're playing operatives in like a thing, and that's like a normal tabletop RPG, and then also a game that has a war game element. I would love it if I could seamlessly switch between like Warhammer 40k, like Dark Heresy, to the 40k 9th edition, like tabletop. Mm-hmm. Like operatives doing a mission while the land battle does a thing, or even games that could be happening simultaneously. So how your war game's doing over here is going to dictate how a mission goes over here.
Mm-hmm.
I think like melding of wargaming with tabletop gaming is something Lancer kind of does, and I really like that element of Lancer, because like I like me some war games, but I would like to see more of a meld of the two, because there's no reason they shouldn't be fully separate. Granted, you are learning two games in that prospect, but like, what if the two games are just good?
Yeah. I mean, is it like, it's like video games, you jump into an RTS and you gotta learn the RTS, and then if it adds other elements, you gotta figure them both out.
Yeah, and I also fully like believe that there should be an RTS game that you can play a first-person shooter inside of it. Like the idea of playing an RTS or a strategy game, and then this one part of my army is not doing very well, I'll hop down into like the sergeant's head and play as him, and now you're playing like a COD thing where you're a one-man army, and then I gotta switch sides and you can change to a tank or something. Like that would be such a good game, and I'd be like the only RTS game I like, because so
they've
far
had games like that before.
I've never been able to find any on Steam. I've heard that there's like stuff that does similar things. The one I'm talking about specifically is I want a game that does what Black Ops 2 tower defense missions did. I love tower defense. I absolutely love it. Bloons Tower Defense 6 I've spent too many hours in. But like the Black Ops 2 tower defense is like you set up your towers, and then no, this is getting breached, and you can just then play a COD mission inside of it. That's like exactly what I want. There's stuff that does similar things, but like I want that, but RTS.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's a very good aspect about tabletop, that even like recently I think trying to, goodness, what's the word I'm looking for? I'm trying to like bring myself to a level of understanding on like what it actually is, because we recently started Lancer, and I've been trying to make efforts recently with our group to improve everyone's role play, to get everyone kind of a little bit more into like a narrative style play or whatever. And it's a new campaign. Everything we've been working about, all the conversations I've been having with people, I was thinking, finally we can maybe make efforts to make a more serious or interesting tabletop. And then you guys name your ship the Honk Heresy.
Yeah.
And I'm starting to realize that, like, tabletop is enjoyed in so many different ways by different people. And a lot of the time, in a lot of the stories you hear about online, is predominantly of people goofing and gaffing in tabletop. Kind of just treating it like, a game rather than, like, a narrative experience. Which for me is so different because I love the narrative experience. I love the game aspects of it, but I enjoy blending the two together. I like telling a really good story that has really good game mechanics mixed into it to make an interesting experience to enjoy. But a lot of people just kind of want to go in and just kind of goof and gaff and do random stuff in tabletop. And I think, like, I'm the one who's wrong.
I mean, I know it's a discussion we've had of, like, how we both operate things. And, like, because when I'm playing a tabletop game, I like the idea that, like, you can tell narratives that you can't tell in any other medium in, like, this game format. Because I like the fact that it's at the end of the day a game. You're having fun with your friends. It's why I'm always like I'm there for tabletop for the vibes with my friends to enjoy it. It doesn't matter if the game was the absolute coolest thing ever. If the group and the people in that group sucked ass, I would not touch that game ever. Because, like, they could be the best narrative storytellers ever. They could be like the game is literally my perfect tabletop game I described, but if the people there suck, I ain't touching it. Because I play it because my friends are there and I'm having fun with my friends. The same way I would a lot of multiplayer games. Same way I do with Remnant from the Ashes. I don't think the game's very good. But the moment, like, you and Devin get involved, game's a fucking 10 out of 10. I'm having the time of my life. Like, it's the same deal. That, and at least content-wise, goofing and a gaffing is better content.
Well, I think there's that as well. But I think it's just something that, like, it's super hard to jump into someone else's narrative and try to, like, play seriously when you don't know, like, the setting that well, or when you don't know how a character should orientate themselves, or what have you. I think, like, what Dimension 20 and Critical Role has done really, really well is they've blended in the fun they're having with the fantasy of their characters. And because there's been a lot of moments in both shows, obviously, where they do ridiculous stuff and are doing it, but, like, in character. They just have these really silly moments that are just having fun, but it's something that feels more organic to the narrative. And as a DM, I feel like it's something that it's harder to translate across the DM to player boundary, because the DM is trying to take it very seriously, and it's better when the DM is taking things seriously because it makes what the players do that much more fun for them when they're the weird ones in the universe.
It is fun to just act out sometimes. It's like a lot of the characters I play oftentimes just are strange, and having the reactions of regular people being like, how do you function? It's fun. Like that. It's a great time. I mean, I literally play multiple just straight up weirdos in whatever universe they're in. So I think it's very fun to play someone who goes against the grain. And, like, I think it's an interesting idea, because it's the I feel like tabletop stuff are at their best when the games are teetering that line of serious and goofy. Because if you're playing a game that's too serious, it gets really boring, or, like, really just depressing. It's the normal thing of every comedy must have a tragic moment, every tragedy must have comedic moments. You need the balance to make the other land harder. And it's that balance, too, of the players wanting to be, like, kind of goofy and run around, be wild, and the DM is, like, taking the game seriously, but not so seriously that they're like, you're not paying attention to my beautiful railroad I constructed.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely very interesting, and some other people have mentioned some stuff like making a good trap system. Yeah, there's like I would kill for a really good social combat system in a game where it feels like you are gamifying a social interaction, but in a way that's kind of organic and gives you more stuff to work off of rather than like just hitting the check marks kind of stuff.
Yeah, true. I have an idea to throw your way to combat this.
Okay.
So what if, now picture in your head, you're back in the beautiful year of 2008. One of the best, you might say.
Okay.
And a new game comes out. A little game called Oblivion. Elder Scrolls Oblivion. What if you took the social persuasion system of Oblivion and put that in tabletop?
I mean, I've been very much like developing a tabletop combat or social combat system where it's more like because for me it was more like, okay, what are goals you need in a social interaction? It can be finding out about the other person. It can be changing their, persuading them to do something. There's a lot of different stuff in a social situation. So if you take those goals and then you make interesting routes to get to those goals to find things out about characters, I think social combat could be very good. Very interesting.
But the DM will have to, in this system, make the Oblivion character facial expressions as they pick the wrong answers. That's what I'm picturing. I'm picturing like me making a persuasion check and then you doing a perfect recreation of the Oblivion frown. I think that'd be a great system.
I think that'd be terrible.
What? Hey, the Oblivion persuasion system is beautiful and everyone knows how it works and functions. It's so intuitive.
So intuitive. But I do think like games need more social, and like you said, genre shifts. So here's another thing, right? Something that doesn't exist in tabletop is like proper genre definitions of how the game is played differently from other games. Like, what's the genres that are more than the thematics of like, let's say. Let's start with an easy one. What's the genre of, like, 5th edition?
Like, of tabletop?
Of game style.
Of game style. It's kind of interesting. I hope this doesn't sound like a cop-out, because I don't mean it like this. I feel like D&D 5e itself has created its own type of play genre. I feel like it's its own thing that other people are, like, D&D style. Like D&D light kind of deals.
I mean, I disagree because one, so it's like take for instance Call of Duty, right? First person shooter. That's the genre. It doesn't matter what time period it is. High fantasy, like I said, not talking themes, talking how the game actually plays, right? D&D is as currently noted as a D20 dungeon diving RPG.
Yeah, I mean, like if it's the same deal as like that feels, I don't think I've ever thought about tabletop genres. Like I don't, any of the games we play, I don't think I know the genre of what they are.
Exactly.
The themes, like it's just, do you throw a D20 down? Do you throw a D100 down? Do you throw D6s? The only thing, like, I guess, like, genre-wise that's different is really just the line down the middle of, are you a war game or are you a like, RPG?
And that's...
I feel like the two types. There's more, obviously, but...
But that's the thing, right? It's because the culture doesn't exist for it right now. We don't have proper ways of identifying it. And not only that, but games aren't made with the idea of how they're played versus making another tabletop. When people make a tabletop, they make a tabletop and then they try to design interesting game elements around the idea of what they're making. Rather than if game developers were to start taking it down a route of developing a genre of tabletop where it plays in a specific way and is still a narrative-based game. There's a lot of things that like tabletop is super far behind like the video game industry on that I think that they can obviously share. Like you said, you would like to have a tabletop game that has like RTS elements in a sense, or war game elements in a sense, and that can be its own genre.
Yeah,
you know,
it's like the it's like an expanded. Okay, I think I might have mentioned this. I don't know if I've told you about it. The Game of Thrones war game. From everything I've heard, I've yet to play it. It's a really cool game, and a lot of the models are great and all that. But there's an element to it I think is really cool, where there's a diplomacy system in the war game, where inside of your army you have a diplomat at like King's Landing. You know, based on who you're playing as, like Tyrion or Rob or all that stuff. And as they're doing their part of the game, there's like the diplomacy phase that can adapt what the war game is, like what's going on in that aspect of it. Because like you're getting more supplies, you're requisitioning more men, like stuff like that. And I feel like an expanded version of that would be so cool. Like you're playing a war game, you're like doing like you complete a turn, and then it's like you got a bit of your RPG, like you're infiltrating a ship while the land battle is currently underway to distract, so these operatives can sneak in. It's like a little stealth mission, and then if you get caught, we'll dictate like, oh, such and such is happening, or they're starting to retreat because like they notice people are in their ship. Like all that kind of like stuff of how it can all adapt. That'd be fun. The least accessible game that I'm pitching, though, I will say, because I am asking like, hey, tabletop designers, make yourself a RPG
game in your
system
game
and a war game, and then sell minis. And so I'm asking for the price of entry to be very high. That's a hefty cost.
But imagine it being moved to a more digital kind of asset. Like you could have the physical, but if there was more of an industry for the virtual as well, you know, rather than just jerry-rigging something on Tabletop Sim, you know, that's how you can ease accessibility. You can get people to buy a one-time purchase online program that lets them do it, and then if they get really suckered into the hobby, then they'd start actually doing the buying of figures and everything like that because they're cool, you know, because they want to. And
I love that.
But see, this is the thing, like tabletop is doing this in some degree. There is what is like 7 candles or 9 candles or something like that, 13 candles.
It's 7 or 9. It's one of those numbers.
Some number of candles, you know. That's an interesting
candles.
one.
That's a great one. There's the Django one.
The Django one, you know. And they are changing how it is. There's some puzzle-based tabletop games, you know. Imagine a tabletop RPG style game that is also kind of like the social deduction game styles, you know, like you gotta figure out like where the haunt is in an area or stuff like that. Yeah, and actually, you know what? That's very interesting that you mentioned that, Dead Phoenix, because for the game that I've been designing, I've been trying to create situations where characters can do their own kind of thing that still progresses the story and can be handled in a very succinct and like quick way so that someone's not hogging the spotlight. Like players can develop a kind of infiltration skill that allows them to map out the enemy base pretty much and get information on the base as something you do like before you guys enter into like a dungeon kind of deal. And how good they are at that determines how much info they find out, how many rooms they open up, all that kind of stuff. And it's based on like its own unique system in the game. Because that's the thing with tabletop that I think is really missing in the hobby, which is not modifiable, but like when you can take different parts and like add or subtract based on your preferences.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember what the word is at the moment. We'll say modifiable for now.
Yeah.
Where you can get as much out of the game that you want, depending on what you're interested in and what you're pursuing, and you can remove aspects that you're not pursuing and not be punished for it.
I think it's a good way to handle things. Like, you have that variety of things. Oh, Jesus. You have a variety of things that happen in your game, and then the level of care and interest people put in and take out. You know, your games are going to be different from table to table because one mechanic might speak more to another table.
Yeah.
That modulability of tabletop, I feel like, is a very important thing. A game should be open enough that, like,
modular. Sorry.
Yeah. I'm glad I was able to help you with a vocab word. A game needs to be adaptable enough that nothing is really lost if you can, adapt and change something for your table. You should be able to like make it your own like table at the end of the day. If the game becomes lesser because of it, I feel like it's a worse designed game.
Exactly. And that's the thing as well, is with the genre shift where we start developing genres of tabletop that play in unique ways, people can also do weird experimental things. Think of like a deck building style tabletop game where you're doing unique events or whatever, and you're trying to vie to get cards to add to your deck so that when you go through encounters, and there's some games that do this, there's some video games that do this kind of stuff. Heck, Slay the Spire pretty much kind of does that.
Yeah.
And yeah, and that's another thing to finish as well, is I think if you start establishing more of a genre styling for tabletop games, you can start identifying what kind of games your friends like or don't like. And if virtual tabletop becomes more and more of a thing, that can be something that you can seek online for people who have that same kind of thing. Because that's a problem that exists currently. I can't tell you guys how many times I love playing a game that none of my friends enjoy. It happens all the time. But I can play them because other people play online, or I can play them by myself. And tabletop is no exception. There's some tabletops that you like that your friends just don't jive with.
Yeah, I was about to ask, like, what game could that be? Then I was like, oh yeah, you love Final Fantasy 14, don't you?
I love Final Fantasy 14. I love Monster Hunter. I like MMOs in general. A lot of our friends don't.
Yeah, we're a very anti-MMO group.
Yeah. An anti-Monster Hunter, which is very tragic, because I actually love the series a lot.
Not for a lack of trying, sadly.
Yeah, well, and see, that's the problem with Monster Hunter. I literally did what everyone has done, which is I played a Monster Hunter, didn't like it, and returned it. I think that was Monster Hunter Tri. It was the first one I ever played. And then I got Monster Hunter 4, tried again, tried it, and I was like, oh, this is actually fun. And I've been stuck with it ever since.
I had someone send me a copy of Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate, and I remember playing it and being like, this game fucking sucks.
It's not a game series you can get into on your first try, which is really bad, admittedly.
Yeah,
But that happens to literally everyone. They play it once, they don't like it. But then they come back knowing how the experience was before, and then they get past it, and then they're like, oh, because it's slow, methodical combat, and it's something where it's frustrating because you can get locked into your moveset and get, destroyed by the monster real easy. But once you understand how the game flow works and everything like that, it picks up the pace, it gets faster, and it becomes a lot more like a technical fighting game in a lot of ways. Like, imagine Monster Hunter is like having a Dark Souls boss creature and then mixing that with the technical skill of like a side-scrolling fighter game. That's how the combat works. Where you gotta watch their moves, do proper counters, and know your moveset so well that you can, and their moveset so well that you can kill the monster.
Speaking of, I'd absolutely love it if people, like, if our friend group, like, any of us played fighting games. I'm just over here as my casual fighting game, like, fan, like, hey, you know, anyone here play Tekken? Anyone play Marvel vs. Capcom? No?
I've had Marvel vs. Capcom. That was really good.
It's a great game.
I like a lot of them. I do like... I wanted to play a DNF Duel, too.
That is fair. I know for a fact no one is going to be playing the JoJo All-Stars Battle with me.
Yeah.
That was just me. That game is hype, though. Okay, that's a great fighting game.
I admit that I'm sure it's interesting, but it's unfortunately just... If you're not that into JoJo's, you're just not going to get that into the game.
No. But it's great.
I do know most of the characters, though, actually. I have been, like, slowly osmosis, like, getting information on JoJo's and watching more and more of JoJo's, like, occasionally here and there. So, I do understand a good amount of it. It's still not something that I'm, like, super hyped about, but I have consumed a good amount of it. Blaze Blue is also really good.
I only know Blaze Blue as, like, Guilty Gear Light. I haven't played.
I wouldn't call it light. It's just different Guilty Gear. But
yeah.
I will admit Guilty Gear is, I think, a much better IP. I don't know. Nothing in Blaze Blue has come out that was very interesting.
Yeah, Guilty Gear has got the music and the character designs, and also just a very well designed fighting game. Where my type of fighting games are the type where everything is unique, because that's Guilty Gear as well. Every character plays very differently, and that's what I like about the JoJo one, because every single character has some weird, unique shit that is so reference heavy to the series. It's like I like fighting games with fluff, but compared to fighting games with crunch. I'm not a big Street Fighter guy.
My biggest gripe when it comes to fighting game, I will play fighting games. I don't mind. I enjoy the aspect of improving and getting better. It's just if I don't play with the person who likes actually playing it with it, then I don't end up playing it.
Yeah.
And I don't solo play fighting games ever. So it's always like, do I want to buy this game that I'm only going to play for 20 hours? That's my issue. I do like fighting games. I played a lot of the Soul Calibers. I did play Blaze Blue. I want to play Guilty Gear games, honestly. DNF Duel also looked really interesting to me, but it's just hard to say I'm going to spend $60 on the game I'm going to play 20 hours.
Yeah. I mean, I can imagine that's the same thing for Blaze Blue. To my understanding, there's isn't it all, both of them Arc System work games? Arc Sys makes some very good fighting games. I'm also looking at the Persona fighting game. The Persona 4 Arena game is very fun. That's a great one. And all in all, they make very good stuff. Oh, they also made Dragon Ball FighterZ, which is another great game.
Okay, get some water, but I am listening.
Shit. But yeah, I feel that. I would play Guilty Gear. I just need to buy Strive. I've yet to get it. I did the beta test when that was a thing. And I've played a lot of Guilty Gear Xrd, which is a great time. They did change how my boy Kai Kisuke plays. He's a lot more lame now, apparently. Though Guilty Gear does have some of the best character designs and music. Oh, the soundtrack.
And I think the part that makes tabletop kind of just a step more in the complication area is who's running the game. You know, there's a lot of people who would love to play a game, but wouldn't love to run the game.
Me.
But I don't think it's that big of an issue if we could get a more regulated way to find groups. Because it's kind of like people who enjoy Dead by Daylight. It's an isometric. There's one person who plays the killer and 4 survivors. And there's people who play nothing but survivor. And there's people who play nothing but killer. And, it gets by pretty well, honestly. Despite the fact that technically the game needs 4 times as many survivor players as killer players.
Yeah, somehow people enjoy playing Survivor and Dead by Daylight. I can't imagine.
J-Stars was also really good.
I'll say, arena fighters, very poorly designed. I hate a lot of them. My love of competitive fighting game stuff. However, they're also so fun. I will goddamn the people who like the Naruto Shippuden games or whatever they are, the big arena fighters.
Mm-hmm.
Again, the JoJo one is really fun, despite the fact that it is an unbalanced mess.
Yeah.
Where some characters can exploit the backstab hitboxes if they say make you explode. But they're always such a good time to just break out with friends and just play some dumb shit. Which is needed every once in a while. It can't be fully competitive all the time.
And Dead Phoenix, the funny thing about that idea, the whole find match in a TTRPG app to be in a game in a minute situation, I think there can definitely be a way to have that aspect in tabletop, actually. If we can move away from the necessity of the journey, the single long venture, and instead make tabletop more focused on mission-based, modular-based kind of gaming style where you can play for a session or two and kind of get something, unlock something, level up, whatever, and then that character can go elsewhere with that stuff. That's, I think, something that can be done in this space. You need an online, you need some kind of server thing. You need something that can record what games you play, and it needs to be a lot more of a obviously you play a lot, you're gonna get a lot kind of stuff. If there's a way that it can be done to make it just easy enough to find groups and everything, because the thing is, right, that sounds really hard to do, but but RP servers do this all the time.
It would actually be a very cool thing if there was that. I just want to find a game real quick. I'd be very happy for the people who like it, because I would not touch that shit. It's like a 9-foot pole, only because of what I said earlier. I only find tabletop fun because it's with my friends.
Yeah, but that's the same with video games,
Kinda. I also don't do that for video games. I don't
yeah,
play multiplayer
exactly. Stuff. So that's why I don't think that's why I think it can exist in that fashion.
Oh yeah, it'd be a thing where I look on and I'm like, happy for you, and then I turn back to my thing. Which I do a lot. I have a lot of things like that.
But it's there's and that's the thing, right? It's just tabletop is very infantile right now. It's very much in a state before I think it will get good, because there's not enough money in the industry to push it forward. So I think with a lot of the interest in it, and let me tell you, there are people hungry to make content for tabletop. There are people who are dedicating a lot of their time and effort. If you get onto the tabletop Twitter, you'll just see tons of people just advertising relentlessly. Check out our tabletop stuff. Check out our tabletop stuff. Check out our tabletop stuff. And there are tons of people who absolutely love tabletop. I know, because we have a community. A small 1.5K channel on YouTube has a community of like 130 people.
True.
And we have like 10 people who come regularly for our live stream stuff. Like, there are people who want this content. It's just the industry is not set up for that kind of stuff, for more experiences, new kind of games. Tabletop itself, like I've said many times before, is not anywhere near its final stage. The industry is just beginning, really. And that's why I want to work on it and do what I can now at the beginning, because it's only been popular for not even really a decade yet.
Tabletop Renaissance 2.0.
Well, that's the thing, right? That happens.
Oh, 100%.
That happened in video games plenty. Because there's the home console boom, and then it petered off. And then there was the PC boom, and then that kind of petered off. And then there was the second home console boom, because people don't realize that before the console wars of PlayStation, Xbox, and Nintendo, there was the old Nintendo, the home console Nintendo, and Sega and Dreamcast and everything like that. And that was a big thing back in the day,
Nintendo does, but Sega don't.
Yeah,
no, wait.
Pretty much.
I think it's the other way around. Sega does what Nintendo don't. I don't know. The whole the console wars, always the fun classic thing.
Yeah, and we had a second coming of the console wars, I don't know, probably a decade or two after that console war kind of ended.
Xbox and PlayStation.
With Xbox and PlayStation and Nintendo again.
Yeah, the shit I still see. I whenever I'm looking at a new game release, it's always someone underneath it being yeah, but it's on Xbox, so it's shit. Xbox doesn't even work.
Right, and that's the thing, right? That sounds so insane to us now, but that was the big thing back in the early 2000s.
I remember it was a thing in my elementary school. Did you have an Xbox or a PS3? Did you play Halo or COD? And if you didn't play COD and have PS3, you were lame. That was the thing growing up for me.
So, in a lot of ways, there's no reason to expect tabletop not to follow. Because the thing is video games were not the most exciting thing. It started with Pong, and arcade games, and it was something that you did, it wasn't even a home thing, and then it became a home thing, and now people make lives on it. That wasn't even a thing, more than 20 years ago. So tabletop is just at the stage where now it's seeing its increase and a lot more people are playing it. But people are, and I assume within the next 10 years easily, going to get bored with tabletop as is and are going to be looking for more outlets, because there's a lot of people who will remember the fond days of when they got into D&D 5e and want to kind of live that experience again of discovering tabletop. And then they'll go on to try to do other tabletop. It would be more strange for tabletop not to go through this than it would be for it to go through this. Because it just happens with everything. Art. Automobiles,
Gotta have those movements where just something comes, shakes everything up, and then disappears.
I'm sorry, Dead Phoenix. Hopefully we get to a future soon where you can just find another group with a touch of an app. But yeah, so that's the thing, right? That's the thing that I wanted to make this table talk about, which is why are there so many mediocre tabletops? It's because the industry doesn't have a lot of money, because the industry is not being run by people who are, or led by people who take tabletop as something other than like a D&D clone. Really? There are some out there, don't get me wrong. But like, it's not, the industry is not being led by that. And also, and something I didn't get to mention because we got on a different topic, but it did kind of come up. There are just tabletop games you just don't like because it's not your style.
Yeah.
So the game can be very mid because it's not your style. Like, personally, I'm not the biggest Blades in the Dark fan. I know, right? A lot of people absolutely love Blades in the Dark, and I think there are some aspects of Blades in the Dark I like, but I do not like how... I don't like how a lot of the times it doesn't feel like game decisions matter for how you build your character. Because if the GM's not going to set you up with situations you guys can't beat using the skills that you have. And a lot of the skills can be somewhat interchangeable in some situations.
Yeah.
And depending on what you do.
I
just don't like that.
I adore games in the dark because I feel like it's the perfect fit for my DM style. Like, it's the thing where it's very free and open, where you're like, rules, sure. You described a thing cool enough, I'll let you do it. That's the thing I like.
Yeah, and you know what? That's completely fine too.
Yeah.
It's just
and
like...
I mean, I don't like Starfinder, and a lot of people really like Starfinder.
Yeah, which is very strange, because it's pretty much just Pathfinder, but it's old Pathfinder, so...
I think I just don't like old Pathfinder.
Yeah, I mean, that's very, very much the same thing. Is, like, that's just the industry in general. And the thing is like, I absolutely love Lancer, and I've been dying for a mecha-style RPG game, like tabletop RPG game. And this is the right level for me of variability and like build decisions and everything like that, but without needing the spreadsheets that you would need for like the other big tabletop one.
Yeah.
Which is more of spreadsheet mecha game, which some people absolutely love. I just am not that kind of person.
I could never. Like, yeah, I know people like their rules. I always have been very like, rules. Who needs them? That's my style at the end of the day. I like it when something, is like the DM can quickly look at a thing and figure out how to properly make a decision. But if I'm DMing a game, that's why I felt like I was pretty proficient with 5e, because I could hand wave things very easily.
Oh yeah.
And like very easily just be like, oh, you want to do this thing? That is not in any way an action you can take in 5e. However, you actually took the time to come up with something clever and interesting. I'm not going to tell you no here. Or, oh, you actually came up with like a cool thing to set yourself up in the scene. This contradicts what I set up earlier. Like, this isn't exactly how I set up the room to like be when you walked into it. However, the sheer fact that you like took the time out of like playing D&D, not looking at your phone and just like describing a roleplay thing, yeah, you did that. 100%.
Yeah. And
rewarding effort.
This is the big divider between tabletop and video games. I know we had gotten into a bit of a debate a while ago versus like what peripherals add or take away from tabletop. But what I like about tabletop genuinely, despite how much I love rules, is that you can change the rules if you need to. The best tabletop I've ever run was in Anima Beyond Fantasy. And I literally made shit up most of the time.
Yep, would have fooled me.
I literally looked at the game, understood generally how the game worked, and then just made things that more or less fit in the game. And honestly, nothing I made ever exceeded the jank the system already had.
Yep.
If anything, it made more sense of some of the jank that the system
There
already
are
had.
changes you made that I will refuse to play Anima normally. Like, without. I will not play the Anima initiative system. That sounds like a fucking ass. I don't hate myself that much to play the Anima initiative system.
And that's why I don't think tabletop needs to move in the direction of just be a video game instead. I think that's a terrible idea. Like, no one should ever think that online peripherals mean I just want to play an RPG game. That's not what peripherals are for. They're to enhance the experience, make things more accessible and easy, rather than to not.
That is why I think my analogy of you just want a dual disc for tabletop is a great analogy.
It's
exactly
not.
That's what a dual disc does. Exactly
It's
what
not.
it does. It gives you a ease of access because you don't have to be sitting at a table. It makes it more fun because you have a cool arm thing rather than like a table. And everyone can be like, oh, I understand. You put it in that slot. Cool. Easy. Ease of play and excesses because everyone's like, damn, that's a cool peripheral. I'm going to play Yu-Gi-Oh! Because that's what I did.
To be fair, I will say a dual disc would make the act of playing most CCGs more fun.
I have played Yu-Gi-Oh! With a dual disc as a kid because my friend had two, and it was the absolute most fun I've ever had in a card game, and I've never hit that peak since.
So I agree in that respect, but not tabletop.
I'm saying it's the idea of a peripheral that comes along, improves the experience, and does that. A dual disc is like a fun thing to point at. To be like, haha, get it? Dual disc. That's what it does. That's how I understand it.
I was about to give you a point. You're like, haha, dual disc, see?
Yeah, that's what a dual disc does, and it's a good analogy. And no, because you have your like holograms and you can like point at people and shout, like you can stand and go like, Yugi, you've fallen for my trap. And then you'll go magic vortex and then erase your 5-level plan with a single card. Yu-Gi-Oh's a great game.
Jar of Greed. Anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like peripherals are just something that make the game easier, And tabletop should always be something that's changeable for the experience in the moment. Something where, you're like, no, that's not in the game, but I like how you do it anyway. I do that all the time. As much as I enjoy rules, if a player asks to do something that kind of goes outside of it, if anything, I'll give their idea structure to roll with, but I let them do it all the time. The only time I don't let them do it is by doing it, it sets a precedence that can work in other similar situations that I just don't want to happen. It's pot of greed. That's true.
It's all, speaking of pot of greed, I was always so like dumbstruck as a kid that no one ever drew Exodia till Yugi did it. Because you can just make a deck that is all about drawing cards as much as possible. That was possible in the first edition of Yu-Gi-Oh! Like incredibly possible. And then there's like, no one's ever drawn Exodia before.
Yeah, but it's more fun when you have the heart of a card, at least.
It is true. You gotta have the heart of the cards. Because otherwise, what are you doing? That's the problem with Magic and like Magic players. They don't believe in the cards.
No,
your grandpa didn't give you those cards.
3-turn win strategies.
Or mill decks, the absolute awful people that play mill decks.
I gotta say right now, here now, I hate gameplay design that takes away other people's fun.
That blue decks, I'm looking at you. God, I remember in a tournament, I played Magic for like a month or two, and I had this great time at a draft tournament, like new edition, of like picking up cards, making your own decks. I had the most fun games ever. and then I played some with the mill deck, and the most absolute despair and like anger I felt of just like, this is the least fun shit I've ever done in my life. It was a pure mill deck. Fuck mill decks. I hate you.
Yeah, back in the old days of Yu-Gi-Oh, Devin had the most annoying deck where he played a bunch of high attack 4-star monsters, like 1800, you know.
Mhm.
And then he played this magic card, magic card that was like, is dimension something, like dimensional doorway or something. And what it did was it locked off 2 of the enemy's like battlefield slots for monsters.
Uh-huh.
And he had a bunch of those cards and draw cards. So he would just make it where I could not put any monsters down, and then he would use his 1800 monsters to destroy my HP before I could do anything.
Devin.
Couldn't put up any defense. Nothing.
You know, I will agree with that statement when all mill deck cards are removed from Magic. Then I will agree that I'm happy blue exists.
I don't
Meanwhile,
mind.
I'll in my happy corner where the only good decks are green, red, and black.
I don't mind a lot of the blue effects, whether it's like unsummon or anything like counter summon, all that kind of stuff. I think that's fine. The problem with mill decks or decks that like destroy your hand is it says you don't get to use your deck. If it's like I play my monster, I unsummon your monster, it's like, oh, okay, whatever. It's equivalently killing the monster just as it's played.
I hate that. My green
deck,
I hate that.
I think it's completely fine. But
bunch of nerds. Let me summon my T-Rex.
Yeah, land destruction.
A pox upon your lands.
I hated that because I loved artifact. I had some artifact decks back in the day, but like all land destruction cards are like one land or artifact, so it just completely destroyed everything that I did. Yeah,
having everything perfectly balanced for the mana setup you need, and then someone's like, "I'll take away your mana." I'm throwing hands at the table. How dare you?
And like even in games like Phantom Dust, where you have like the erase deck that just gets rid of your abilities, it's like just don't make game mechanics that literally prevent people from playing the game. That never do that. Why is that ever considered a good thing? But you know why? You know why those things exist? Because the people who design them love that shit. They love being like, got rid of your thing, now what, you didn't loser. They're the assholes.
Yeah, it's the ha ha ha, I'm bullying somebody, like Phantom Dust deck. Like, God, Phantom Dust is really guilty of that. I do like really that in Phantom Dust. It is kind of goofy. I like how janky a lot of the stuff is. And I mean, like, luckily we have people who are like, all right, I play it once and then I put it in the back of the deck. I'm gonna play my fun one. Looking at one person in particular. Granted, every time it's been thrown at me, I've asked for it. I've been like, "Oh, you think I'm a coward? You think I'm a chicken? You think I can't take it?" And then I'm like, "I can't take it. Stop, please!" Like mid game. Yeah.
It's just like game mechanics like that are just the worst. I'm glad nothing like that. It's like actually, well, I was gonna say I'm glad nothing like that exists in tabletop. That's not true. The GM taking away your magic items for something like, "Oh, your items were stolen." Like, he. Also just doesn't feel good. So like gosh, in our Pathfinder, in our most recent fight in Riptide, in where the boss like nukes our barbarian strength score with an enfeeble, like that was pretty much the same kind of thing of, well, your best stat is strength, not anymore.
I made your character useless in this fight.
It wasn't useless.
Mostly, if you have to roll a 19 or higher or something to be effective in combat, that's pretty much useless. Yeah, that also frightened at the beginning of a match, 2 to 3 rounds running away. Yeah, agreed. That's pretty much like, well, can't play today. I could just basically, my character could be unconscious and nothing would change.
Yeah. That's the thing as well, is like there are some abilities that I think need to be in the player's hands only versus enemy hands, even though
Yeah.
that skews. But you can then do the opposite, and you can have certain monster abilities or whatever that players don't get access to. So
Yeah. I always am like, as a DM, peak like I will never do anything that interrupts the player's first round of combat, because it's the first round that sets the vibe. And the thing I cannot stand is the like, oh hell yeah, I get to play my character first round of combat. I go first. Oh, I miss. Oh, I'm dead. Okay, cool. And you just like instant down. You just like, well,
yeah,
okay, now I just gotta sit back and just wait. I guess I'm useless now. Like I hate that. So I always had a hard rule in my games where like I will never take someone down, like knock someone unconscious in the first round of combat. Never, because it's so unfun. Second round, anything fucking goes. I'm kicking your ass. The first round of combat's long enough that you'll at least be like, okay, yeah, the vibe of this fight is it's winnable. If people get knocked down or horribly cursed round one at combat, it sets the vibe that this is insurmountable odds in like an unfun way.
mm-hmm.
That's what I found through sheer trial of error of designing like 5e boss fights. I've ran some stinkers, and then I ran some fun ones that a lot of people enjoyed.
I'm definitely really bad at, not bad. I have a different sense of fun, I think, than most of us when it comes to like tabletop and encounter design and everything like that. Because for me, especially as the GM, I'm like, okay, I've made this encounter to the point it'll push you guys to the edge. You'll use your resources, but I know you'll win because the math works out, probability and everything. Like, I'm really good at identifying the hard edge of like what will get the players down but not out.
Mm-hmm.
And I've done that for pretty much all my encounters up until this one. In this last one, it was a really hard fight, and it didn't seem like you guys just got the boss, the main boss, under half health, and you guys felt pretty drained of everything. The boss was also pretty tapped. That just wasn't. It's something that couldn't be easily conveyed to you guys, other than me telling you guys, trust me, I'm not gonna give you a fight you're not gonna win. But you gotta try. You gotta push. Because to me, like, I really like those moments of just try and do it and fight to the end. And, like, victory can be clutch at the last moment. I like those moments. I think they're very good. But you gotta not lose heart before the end,
Yeah, it's the hard part. I think it's the tricky balance of tabletop morale. Because I'll say, for every other fight I've done, I am peak like, now we got this. We 100% got this. We're good. That's always been like my mentality. I've done that through your hardest fights. I've been like, nah, we're good. Except for like maybe the first one where I'm like, ooh, this hurts, and it's like, oh, wait a second, this is just Pathfinder. I get it now. But like, that's been me. The only time I can say I disagree is with that worm fight. It was a very fun fight. I like the actual like two of those monsters, fucking spooky. I didn't think I'd be getting foreshadowing when I dipped into one of your Monday game. I gotta say,
yeah,
didn't think I'd get a highlight of what a purple worm is. But it's the thing of, at least on my end, I got in a position where I had nothing I could do because like all my shit. It's also, I realized all my shits are dex saves, and when I'm trying to hit someone with a dex thing, it's kind of like, And every time, like, it'd be like, oh no, you have a chance to do damage. I mean, yeah, if you roll like above a 5, you crit succeed my save, and I do nothing.
It wasn't that likely.
It was still, yeah.
If you had just kept trying, you would have failed a few, but you would have hit a few, and the ones you hit would have really hurt.
I did run out of my dex save AoEs. It was just attack stuff where I'd have to roll, I think it was like a 16 up to like hit.
Even that, see, and that's the thing, is like, it's something that I take into consideration of sheer volume. Because y'all were like, oh, he hits really hard though. Those worms, that persistent damage, that's a lot of damage. It's like, yeah, that's at the end of your turn. But you know what happens between his turn and his next turn? Y'all and like 12 actions, 15 actions. It's a lot.
True. It breaks down at the end of the day to like game feel of like player to player side. Where if every single one of your turn is I do a thing, miss, okay. Like if for every single one, the single one you get of you do damage is like cool. I actually did something. Like it's a different feel because it's like imagine playing XCOM where every single shot you have has a 20% chance to hit. That game would fucking suck. And that's like what I'm so interested with tabletop design, where a lot of it, like when it says like, oh, all right, so I have to roll this. That's a really low percent.
Yeah.
It's a hard balance.
It's the difference between players' mentality on missing means doing nothing rather than missing is just a part of the process. Because that's the breakdown. Like I said, I got to get better at making encounters that have a different feel to them, because I'm really good at pushing guys to the limit, but I'm not good at doing it in a way where every one of your actions feel impactful along the way. That's it's kind of like when you guys fought the Arctic Chimera and Anima.
Oh, that one was pure. The dice hated us.
Well, the dice hated you guys, but you guys still won.
We did. It did feel like that was one where it was like this encounter is not even like there's no design issue with it. It's purely the dice decided like fuck all of you.
Well, it was also an enemy that just had very high defense.
Oh yeah, it did. But it did not help that we couldn't roll like above a 15 or something.
Yeah.
Like that was it. Where it was like luck is on our side. Or even like, the one I think of like the really fun hard fight we did, the one in A New Slate, the final session of that fight in like the tavern we did. I was a big fan of that. That was a really fun one. That was a tough, but like I think really fun one.
Yeah. Yeah, and that fight, I mean, it was just a thing if you guys were low enough level that you guys could fight enemies that dealt damage but took a lot of damage simultaneously.
Yeah.
So you could take them down, and that's kind of the hard part when it gets to higher end Pathfinder. There's not a lot of enemies that are capable of doing a ton of damage, but also are weak enough to take a lot of damage. Because everything is kind of designed with like party aspects in mind and everything like that. So it's again, it's just something that I need to get better at, providing you guys fights where you're making constant progress with every action you're doing that is still pushing you to the end. It needs to be that feeling of like it's like you're chipping away at each other and to see like who's the last one standing kind of situation. And that's just incredibly hard to do because it's hard to make enemies that like first of all can hit you guys all like generally equally, because you guys will have varying ACs, varying HP, varying ways you do damage, and so it's really hard to kind of set that up. Yeah,
it's the granted, I saying this, I don't know how this meshes with your DM style, as I'm gonna say, prepping for this. I know Mr. Improv DM. The one thing I always did was I always had, if it was like a big encounter, I made sure there was environmental stuff, like victory stuff, conditions they could do, where like it's a really hard fight, and then you get in a position where, say, like your spellcaster, it's like, oh, they're super proficient at my save. Well, turns out there's some stuff I could do in the environment that can make a big old chip. Or like I always did that for my boss encounters. Like, yeah, you could go attack the boss, or say you could collapse a pillar onto them with this ability you have. Like, oh, it's a cool idea. Now you can do this. Giving the variance of actions that allows like, okay, I'm not hitting any of my hits today. What if I take a step back, examine the battlefield, and find something clever to do? Like that's the stuff I always did. I prepped multiple ways of doing it, but that's also because I've had full battle maps like ready, like design like stuff. I planned out my sessions like well, and when you're improving, that's a lot harder to do because if you're not
Not
pre-doing battle maps.
necessarily. I've done plenty of encounters that have had environmental things in it. The problem is it would be like the same thing as like throwing in like, hey, here's a win button in the fight in a sense. Because the point of that battle was it was a hard fight.
Oh yeah.
And if there was something you guys could do to negate how hard the fight is by acting in the environment, that's defeats the purpose of the fact that it was supposed to be a hard fight. There's plenty of fights that, and the thing is, right, that was something that could have been done in that fight, but you guys were so obsessed with the actual game and its mechanics and its combat flow that you missed out on something that was revealed to you guys really early.
Which one was that?
The thing was weak to splash damage.
Yeah, all my splash damage was deck saves.
None of you have thought, you are with magic casters. Do they not have any like magical bombs or stuff in the tent that was really not that far away from you guys? One of your party members also had a shit ton of bombs on them. Because the thing is, you guys could have nuked the cultists or the worm that walks cultist if you had all just started using all your actions to throw bombs, because every 1 point of splash damage that those bombs did would do 10 to it.
Oof.
Yeah. You guys could have easily nuked that thing. Because Sylvanas had a shit ton of bombs. And you guys had the tent. But I didn't go out of my way to tell you guys any more than when you guys procced its weakness.
Yeah, I guess the whole thing too was I just didn't think that like the tent was anything more than a little set piece for the environment. But...
And I don't like sitting there and being like, hey players, check out this thing, telling you guys how to win a game. I want you guys to have the ability to like come up with something that seems very like out of nowhere. And one part of this I think is just is when you guys get into combat mode in a game that doesn't innately have like that free flow of creativity built into it. It's just not something you guys think about a lot of the time.
Oh, not really.
And second, it's like there is unfortunately not a lot of ways to do something that isn't like inherently inefficient, because it's like, oh, hey, maybe you can blow these rocks onto the enemy. It's like, okay, go ahead and make an attack on these rocks. If they miss, it's like, well, then I guess you just did nothing anyway. It's like, how do you make that scenario challenging for the players in a way that doesn't diminish the challenge of the fight? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, there's no easy wins, and that's kind of why it's designed that way. But then again, that's the whole core of this problem. I'm really bad at giving you guys the experience you're looking for. I'm giving you guys a challenge, but you guys don't want a challenge. Not really. Not like that anyway. You guys want a challenge that you can hard force if you need to.
I think it's the difference too of, because at the end of the day, it's all about player feel. Because like, because you mentioned like you don't want to give a win button, but like, would it feel like a win button to the players? Is the question. Because if you can make anything hard fought enough, so then like you can bring like, it's the feeling of triumph in that moment where everyone's like, yes, we did it, we did this thing. And to the DM side, you're like, yeah, that really was just a win button. To the players, you're like, hard fought, high fives all around, everyone's great. like it's the difference of, I guess, the perspective from like the DM standpoint to like, I just did this thing and you're taking all of this out of it. It's the fun balance between like game design and player feel that's really important.
Yeah, it is. It's a balance, and I don't know. It's like, no matter how much I tell you guys, like honestly and seriously, and how I've constantly proved over and over, you guys can win this. I'm telling you, you guys can win this. But no one takes that to heart, honestly. It's like, okay, sure, I guess you say we can win this. Or like, I guess I believe you, but it doesn't feel like it. Like, you guys, it's a mentality thing. You just have to be like, okay, we can win this, so let's win this. You know,
Yeah.
Let's get into it. Let's actually like dig our heels and push this fight. You know, it's a mentality thing of people. Not everyone has that gut instinct to just push through a fight and try to make it out. You know.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like people who like Dark Souls games versus people who don't like Dark Souls games.
Yeah.
Because Dark Souls, genuinely, honestly, Dark Souls, Elden Ring, all those games are actually really easy games once you know how to play the game. It's like those people who are parry gods, who can parry everything. They make the game look easy because it is actually an easy game when you know this one mechanic well enough that you can beat the game.
Yeah. I think
the problem,
I'll mention this because like I will say, like, fully for the record, I do love, like, I do want a challenge from your games. I do love the challenge. The difference, I think, is it's the thing that I do in my own like mentality when I'm playing these games. If I have multiple rounds where like, or just multiple things in general, where I am put in a position where the chance of me doing something successfully is so low, or just like multiple rounds of me essentially taking the action of standing still and skipping my turn, then I start checking out, because it's like the idea of, well, why am I here? If like, it's like some of it is also on me, because it's like I'm like annoyed in the moment because I'm like, the dice hate me today. Where you have multiple rounds where you just can't roll like above a 5. That happens, and you get in that position where it's like, I could have just like skipped the session and nothing would have changed.
Yeah,
but it's that feeling of like I love the challenging fights, because I'm thinking of the fight we did in like a new slate. I love that fight because I was actually helping and like doing shit. Mm-hmm. The fight with the worm cultist, I was in a position where I was like, I feel like I'm doing nothing. I'm not really helping. I'm kind of just here. And for that part, I was like low morale. But for every other, is like, which also could just be it's a great wake up call to change out William's spells. I will need to get some other save types.
Yeah,
because if we find another thing with deck saves,
that's another thing as well. Is not, if you're doing something and it's not working, then what are you doing to change that in the battlefield as well? You know what I mean? Like, you could have gone looking around. You could have been looking at other options. You could have been working with your teammates to make, like, more successful scenarios. That wasn't being done. You guys weren't exploring the scene or doing anything like that either. It's not a... I take full responsibility in the end. Let me state this clearly. I take full responsibility because that fight was not designed for my players to have fun.
We did also ask for it. I will mention. We did ask for the harder thing.
Yeah, you guys did.
We straight up asked for it.
Which, that's also a problem as well, right? It's like, when I say as a GM, you guys don't want to challenge, everyone's gut reflex is, no, we want to challenge. That's not like, you want a challenge that you can win. Yeah. And people gotta know, like, that's the difference of what it is. Because when you guys tell me I want a challenge, I give you a challenge. I give you something that you don't innately think you're gonna win. That's what a challenge is. No, you guys don't want me to pull my punches. You guys don't want to be treated like children. It's a situation of, like, even the thing of, like, me offering you a hard fight or an easy fight, you guys pick the hard fight because you don't want me to, like, look down on you, in a sense.
Mm.
You know, players like, no, we can handle it. You know, it's just like people in general are really bad about taking things at pace or what they can take or whatever, and they don't want to be looked down on for like not accepting a challenge. And that's why it's my responsibility as the GM to make that challenging option something that's actually not that an actual challenge. Because, like I said, this fight, despite the easy win you guys technically had in your back pocket, despite not looking around, despite everything you were doing, but based on y'all's play style, this fight was designed to push you all to the limit, and that's what it did. You guys still had wounded values you could go through. You guys still had a lot of options, a lot of healing potions. There's a variety of ways you guys could have eked out that win in the end, like more easily. But I knew, despite all of that, that the way you guys played, this would be a hard fight. But that's not how it should have been done. It should have been done where the fight was a guaranteed victory. It just was going to involve you guys doing the same thing, only making more progress. You know what I mean? Like, it's a... I need to get better at identifying what you guys think challenging means and designing something that is more like, I guess, giving in a sense. And it's just hard because that's not how I enjoy games in the end. I enjoy a game where I actually have to think, I actually have to work at it, and I actually have to, like, I had to be put at a disadvantage and then sit back and figure out how the game is actually played and learn and do better that way. Because that's not what you guys were really doing at all. A lot of it was just straight on, I move and I attack. I move and I attack. I move and get to a better position to attack. You know, no one was exploring actions. No one was exploring the environment. And instead you were just hitting a boss that, to be fair, you guys were whittling down despite how everyone felt, despite missing as much as you guys felt you were.
Yeah. Also, like, yeah, I in that moment too, very distracted by the giant worm that was doing like 50, 60 damage a hit. That moment I was like, this thing needs to go down. Though yeah, looking back on it, 100%, we should have and could have nuked the cultist out of existence. That would have been like made that fight go a lot smoother.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was like giant thing.
And that's how it played, and that's the intelligence of the enemy. The purple worm, or the cultist, was intentionally weakening you guys, buffing the worm, letting it do the work, and you guys focused and got the worm down. And once you got that purple worm down, the fight drastically changed.
Oh yeah.
But you guys thought, oh no, it's worse, because now we're trying to hit this thing that we can barely hit, and its slaps actually kind of hurt us. When in actuality it was the cultist lost its frontline tank and now has to try to deal with you guys with its not damage focused spell list.
Except for that one insta-kill one.
Well, true. Which one of you guys did crit and made do nothing once.
The alternative is death.
But, you know, Buddha was asking for it.
Yeah. And, oh yeah, you did roll hot as that worm.
Yeah, but that's the thing with that cultist as well. It doesn't need to, like, rolling well doesn't do much for it, actually. Except for those, like, insta-kill spells, sure. But
yeah. Or the AoE stuff where I did nothing because of crit. On both elements.
Yeah, but even at the most, their side of the battlefield had 6 actions, and you guys had 15.
Oh yeah, action economy always wins in the end.
It was, again, and you guys would have won. But I stopped the cultist fight. Well, I was going to have it leave anyway, but I wanted to make sure I communicated to my players.
Oh yeah.
Do you want to have the boss run? Because that was the intent, but I don't want you guys to feel like this is being taken away from you.
I do appreciate that. That was a move I really liked. The communicating of the of that, like, hey, I want to make sure I'm not giving you a Deus Ex Machina. I'm not doing like I'm not stealing this away from you. Which would you prefer? Making it up to player agency is a very good avenue to take a situation like that.
Right.
I very much like that move.
But yeah, it's just, I don't know. The whole conversation, I've been trying to say, yes, there's things you guys could have been done, but it was not reasonable for me to expect you to do, which I didn't. But I need to make a better encounter that you guys have more fun with that is equally challenging, and it's hard, you know? It's not something that's easy because... And that's the hard thing, as you said, action economy is king. So, if I toss even enough enemies of a weaker level at you guys to be challenging, then it gets swung in a different direction because then it's the action economy instead. Because, you know, in order to make it challenging, I have to keep adding more and more weaker enemies. And then suddenly it changes because the action economy works against it instead. And there's just a critical mass of like...
The Bloodborne one-shot. All those like little gray alien dudes.
Yeah.
That part, ooh, that felt rough.
Yeah.
I was scared for a bit. Oh, that was such a fun one-shot.
That was a good one-shot. I'm really proud of that one-shot.
You did a fantastic job. That boss fight was so fun too. With how absolutely fucking terrifying it was.
Yeah. For sure.
Oh boy.
I need to respond to that person who asked about the rules because I can give some basics, but a lot of it I just made up. I made up your character sheets, made numbers that felt right, and then made creatures that felt right. And again, that's just pure
like
experience.
If you made a PDF of just what you did, I feel like that'd be just very successful. Or
see, I don't, because the math only worked because it was that one scenario. If you tried tweaking things or adding things or making characters using the stats like base, I didn't make a good foundation. I made a good one shot. That's kind of my view on Anima. Is like Anima, I made up a lot of rules based on how it felt in the moment, but I feel like if someone looked at it and was like trying to work with it, it would be something that'd be exploitable easily because the numbers just didn't work in certain ways.
Yeah.
Like I made something that felt generally right for that one shot, but I feel like how I got about there just wasn't founded in anything other than pure gut, which when then taken and like stretched out to the limit and like heavily inspected, there'd probably be a lot more holes in it than, you know, I would have intended. So
yeah, that's fair. That's a good point.
Anyway, that was a big tangent on the difficulty of that fight, but whatever. I hope y'all enjoyed. Regardless, I hate the fact that a lot of the time we're talking about like what the industry needs to do and variety is the way to go and everything. This is kind of the recent topic. It's just hard to, when you see that fact, to kind of like ignore it for anything else. And every time we discuss it, something always gets brought up that people don't think about, like genre, like game design genres for Pathfinder or for tabletop, for instance. People don't think about that kind of stuff.
Sure, I never thought about it.
But hopefully it's an interesting conversation. Thank you all for those who are here. John Reese, Dead Phoenix, Fonzie Zombie, the Vapor Witch, for joining us here today. This will be the last table talk of the year. Yes. Because you're not going to be here next week, right?
Nope. And the week after. However, I will say, you know, Thursdays are still free. What if we just hung out on Thursday?
What do you mean?
Like we just hang out on Thursday, like because you got that one alcohol in your track.
I mean, sure. How does that relate to table? Do you want to sit here on Table Talk and just drink aquavits? And
on one hand, that sounds like a good stream, so I'm into it. On the other hand, I'm also just positing, yo, do you want to hang out on Thursday?
Yeah, Totally. We could
Yeah.
just hang out for sure. I just
100%.
don't know why you're bringing it up when I'm talking about our schedule.
I don't know. You're talking about a schedule. Like you just said it there. We're talking about a schedule. I'm talking about my schedule. My schedule is I'm not free. However, I am free to hang out. And if we stream that day, whatever. We've done it before. I'll do it again.
All right, so maybe surprise stream. We'll see. As far as I know,
Yeah.
based on the mood, this will be the last table talk for the year. We'll be back on the 5th of January. At the very least with an official table talk. If we come on, do some live event over the next couple weeks, so be it. But I'm not going to officially plan anything at this point. Also stating, we will still have a session next week for Wands, our Lancer game. So if you want to tune in for that, check us out next Tuesday at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And there will be a Pathfinder video coming out tomorrow, and maybe a video coming out on Saturday. And I will still be trying to keep up on the content trends, at least for the rest of the year, because I'm not planning on actually going anywhere for the holidays. So, thank you all so much. Happy holidays. Hope you all have a great year.
Yeah.
And thank you all so much for everything you've done. Like I said, we made the top 1% of streamers on the tabletop RPGs section on Twitch, which is huge. Means that people are here, want to see the content we're making. And next year, I plan on doing a lot more with the channel and everything like that. And I think we're going to go a lot of great places. Anything you want to say before we leave?
Yeah.
End of your statement.
We're the absolute coolest when it comes to tabletop. This is the best. I do love table talk every year, or every week. I do love it. It's real fun. I love having these moments, just like talk shop and with like Twitch chat and also cam. I mean, also as well, I also don't plan on slowing down my role for stuff. My channel, I just released a video on the word bearers. I think it's pretty cool. I'm going to be releasing more stuff, including a very fun kind of jokey thing next week or the week after. Sometime during the holidays. It's like a little holiday treat. Just keep your eyes peeled for a very clickbaity thumbnail I've never used. But hell yeah, I hope all of you here have a good holidays.
All right. Now I guess I'll say good night.
Good night.
Good night. Happy holidays.